Hello, everybody. My name is Samantha Johnson, and I'm going to talk about the Civil War in South Sudan. That is what my conflict report is about. So, I have a little bit of a Sudan background here. Let's see. We can see here that there's a mini map right here on the right-hand side. There's a blue and white Nile River. Sudan's located in Africa, surrounded by Ethiopia, Uganda, and Egypt, Central African Republic. It's labeled one of the least developed countries with 6 million people. The importance of the Nile River is that it's a great place for power and control for natural resources. So we'll see a lot of that. Sudan's capital is Khartoum. And then we'll talk about the two long historical civil wars that came into play, known as its slavery, lack of infrastructure, the poor political framework, and I'll talk about the birth of South Sudan's independence in 2011. And throughout the slideshow, I'll talk about my resolution and what I think. So I'm not an expert, but we'll see what happens. And then you'll see a picture on the right next to the map of the Sudanese, and you can tell, look how skinny they are. Famine was a big part of the Sudanese conflict here. So let's get started. So with Sudan's history, it was under the rule of Egypt. It was controlled. Egypt utilized control with the help of slavery. Africa had a lot of slave markets. There was a religious leader that really wanted to unify the Western and Central Sudan, and but eventually Mahdi created the fall of Khartoum. The British claims the Lord Kitchener. He claims Sudan as a condominium to protect the Nile waters. Geez, why not? That's where power is. And of course, there's going to be a lot of broken promises from federal leaders, and a religious clashing begins where a lot of sadness and desperation killings and things like that begins the Sudan's first civil war. So what we can see here as Sudan's first civil war is that the North was populated with Muslim beliefs, and that's really what created the separation. Then there's South Sudan that populated with Christian beliefs, and autonomy was an important aspect of freedom. So what can we do for the Sudanese to really do that and to really solve this? And we have here the Anyanya, a South Sudanese rebel army that fights against the government of Sudan, eventually taking all of southern Sudan. I don't really know if fighting is the best way, but here in this circumstance, when we think of civil war, I honestly think of civil war in the United States. So, what we can do here is to try and create a political framework, and I think we need to start really understanding creating a constitution, creating rights, creating rules, creating things like that. But the problem is active participation. So eventually the Anyanya weakens and the Addis Ababa Agreement is elected. This would end hostility and hope for autonomy, which eventually was elected in, and it helped for a little bit until 11 years later, the Second Civil War approaches. We have Jamar Nimiri, who introduces the Sharia law. That's part of the principles that the Muslim follows. This is what prevents the agreement to break, and to continue with the Bay. And the Bay is a contested area between the north and south borders. Eventually, 2.5 million people are dead. The Anyanya becomes known as Sudan's Liberation Movement Army, fighting the government of Sudan again. So, what are we going to do to make these people listen, I can already tell you the natural resources like oil and cotton are conflicting factors. Eventually, another peace agreement is made suspending Sharia law. But here we need a kind of judicial system, and I think this would eliminate and capture the bad people that are thinking that they have control. We have impeachment and things like that, and I think that kind of control is what we need. I think the leaders need more of a punishment, and what's happening is that the civilians are fighting the government. We shouldn't be having that. We don't, we need to have a peaceful protest like we've had, and others. That's what the Civil War in the United States did. So That's exactly what um that needs to happen. We need to express that virtually, not virtually, but we need to express that wholeheartedly. So let's move forward now at the birth of South Sudan. Eventually gained their independence in 2011 due to a referendum with the United States. That's what the United States assisted with, and you can see here. Look at that flag. I mean, it's quite interesting. It represents a lot, but still, there's a war that breaks out. Why? Again, there is a political leadership struggle among this time with the president of South Sudan, Salva Kiir, and ex-vice president Riek Machar. And from what I found is that Machar starts getting jealous. He starts creating this political struggle, wanting power like Kiir has. And once before, the President Salva Kiir, he led the Dinka group, which is one of the largest ethnic groups, and Riek Machar led Noor, and fighting begins and havoc breaks loose. People are starving, women are raped. We need to have a humanitarian civil rights protection. Okay, and that's what I think we need. We need civil rights protection because eventually now we've led to an interruption of agriculture, causing the worst food crisis the world has ever seen. So right here, now agriculture is an issue in South Sudan. Um, so what can we do to solve that issue? And I honestly think the only way is to actually start educating people. We need to start creating educational programs for these people. But again, another issue that still lingers in Sudan. But some people are still listening because we have gained independence in South Sudan. It's just active participation. What are we gonna do? How are we gonna succeed through that? So in order for my resolution to really come together, I I really was inspired by these two men here, these gentlemen that are part of the United States. And um, the first guy on the left, his name is President N. Lyman. He's a U.S. political ambassador, and then we have on the right here, we have Antonio Guterres. Oh wow, I can't even say his last name. Antonio Guterres, and he's a Secretary General of the United States, who really actually came into Sudan, really saw what was going on by actually going there and understanding what needs to be done. And their opinions I really relied heavily on because um it's a lot of what they said I agree with, and I think that really needs to be implemented. And so what we need to do is reinvent the political framework. And what Lyman insisted on doing is a need for a new political structure. And with that political structure, we need that clarity on democratic rights for all of South Sudan. We need that clarity. And we also need a constitution, a set of rules, especially um, something that we can abide by, something that everyone can abide by, not look around, look, wondering what is going on with everything in the world. So, I mean, and he feels like another big concern is active participation. And that's where I get that active participation term is from Lyman, because it's true. When a new set of rules are coming in, you're thinking about how am I really going to participate in that? And they're so used to ignoring the rules because the rules have hurt them so much with the Sudanese people, because there wasn't really any to begin with. So a lot of the government became too controlling and the government became too big, and we need to have that solution where the government can't get too big, okay? So Lyman then insists on the criticalness of adding international affairs. And that's very important. Countries cannot work alone. We have to have that connection to keep those doors open to help with all the aid that they can in South Sudan. So Guterres, Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations, he mentioned four things that I thought were quite interesting. And number one was restoring the peace process, unrestricted unrestricted humanitarian access, freedom of movement for the United States mission, and then of course a future for a regional protection force. And that protection force is what we have here is police. We need to have police. We need law enforcement. Okay, that's a big thing. Um, who are the bad guys? We need a judicial system. We need to have legal prosecution. Okay, and with that said, I mentioned the Constitution earlier in our slideshow, but we need to have a permanent Constitution. We need to have protection of a legal social justice system among the women, the discrimination that's happening. So you can see a lot of it is really similar to what the United States went through in their own Civil War. We need to have a better way of distributing the resources. We've had all these rebel armies and things like that. We need to educate them, have educational freedom. If this is what you want, we need to set in stone what is legal and what is not. And then create policies in place to protect new and reform processes. So again, South Sudan has a very clashing civilization, but they are making the first step, becoming independent, having assistance, but we need that aid, we need that permanent constitution, we need that social justice, and I think all parties eventually would agree with that. And the people that are leading these armies that keep changing their minds into something more violent, they'll be prosecuted, and eventually we'll have a better country for both the North and the South, and hopefully there's peace in South Sudan. So again, I found a lot of research, a lot of findings, and I think that with all this happening with South Sudan, it's going to take a long time, and it's still taking a long time in the United States and in their civil war. So to we need to start really thinking of ideas, really start implementing them, and hopefully we'll have active participation like we need, and the rules that we need for South Sudan to thrive and survive. So thank you for allowing me to do this presentation, and I hope you all have a great day.